Good morning, Colorado Springs. I'm Dave Gardner, founder and chair of SaveTheSprings, with this week's growth-busting news. It's that time of year again, budget time for city and utility. That always means Christmas for the Colorado Springs Economic Development Corporation, as our city, community-owned utility, and hospital annually tithe to the developer-dominated EDC over $250,000. This year could be closer to $500,000 if we don't act. Does it chap you that, as we conserve water and electricity, our own utility writes a check to the developer-run EDC to attract more customers to move to town to use more water and more electricity? But next year's budget has a lot more people upset than usual. I can see why. Cuts are proposed in essential city services, as well as a number of services important to our sense of community. Topping the list of services on the chopping block: police, transit, graffiti removal, Keep Colorado Springs Beautiful, and the Drive Smart Teen Driver Education Program. The budget crunches facing our city and county today shouldn't surprise us. During the past 15 years of growth fever, we've seen a steady decline in services as we've struggled to deal with all the hidden and not-so-hidden costs of growth. It turns out growth doesn't provide our community with the prosperity growth boosters love to tout. I'm concerned the 2008 budget proposes cutting these services, yet includes $1 million in new spending on economic development. $230,000 earmarked for a new retail enhancement program, nearly $200,000 going to the EDC, a $150,000 increase, nearly $350,000 for this city's economic development division. Let's first look at this new funding of the EDC. It's a well-kept secret that our city has become the single largest investor in the EDC. Our city-owned hospital kicks in money. Our utility kicks in about $250,000 a year. And now our city is jumping in with an extra $150,000 on top of the $45,000 from previous years. Some think that may be a good investment, but let me explain why we shouldn't invest a penny with the EDC. The EDC was formed in 1972 by 3 real estate developers, and it has continued to be developer-dominated. It actually split off from the Chamber of Commerce years ago because the Chamber wanted to focus on cultivating locally owned businesses already in town, but the developers wanted to attract more population so they could keep selling lots. The EDC tries to put lipstick on this pig by telling us its goal is to increase per capita income. City officials seem to buy it, even though the evidence doesn't support that. Our local per capita income has done nothing but mirror the national average since the EDC was formed. Independent experts tell us traditional job recruiting efforts attract population growth. That's why I'm adamantly opposed to public support of the EDC. Of course, that population growth is why developers created the EDC and continue to dominate it. But they do a good job of concealing or glossing over that fact. It's bad enough the developers are busy increasing our traffic congestion and putting our water supply at risk. But to use our tax dollars to do this, without our approval? EDC President Mike Kazmierski and his staff spend their time, and now more and more of our money, trying to poach companies from other communities. He explained how he does this at a Utilities Policy Advisory Committee meeting a year and a half ago.
You want them to have the good first initial impression. So dinner alone last night for the 5 people we brought in here and the connections we made was about $800. So you multiply that times the many visits, breakfasts and this and that. It costs some money to sell Colorado Springs. It doesn't just happen.
Of course, these growth boosters do more than wine and dine executives. EDC is also responsible for convincing our city and utility to provide numerous financial incentives to lure these companies to town. For years, real experts have been saying incentive wars are foolish. There's not a lot of financial benefit left when you give away the farm to win a relocation. Sound businesses don't make location decisions based on these bribes. Plus, incentives get us short-timer companies, here today and gone tomorrow, for sale to the lowest bidder. And what are we paying for? A growth engine that attracts more people our city can't afford to serve. 15 years of growth boom have proven that. We have nothing to show for it but bigger budget challenges, higher sales tax, worse congestion, growing infrastructure backlogs, and endangered water supplies. The proposed budget includes adding a couple of new employees for our City Economic Development Division as overpaid former city analyst Elena Nunez builds her empire.
We look at adding a number of positions for this.
Next, we have the cost of economic development incentives themselves. Over $1 million of economic development-related rebates of tax revenue are budgeted for 2008. Third on our list of egregious offenses is a new retail enhancement program at a cost of nearly $300,000. The plan, apparently, is to take money away from the businesses already in town by capping fees vendors keep for collecting sales taxes and give it to their out-of-town competitors to entice them to move into town to compete with our local businesses. The purpose, as explained by Ms. Nunez a few weeks ago,
we hope to see encouraged consumer spending, increased jobs, foster social and economic vitality by promoting citizen interaction, because retail shopping is now a form of recreation and social interaction.
She's devised an ingenious plan. Siphon our tax dollars away from highly valued services like transit and police. Spend them on a program designed to convince us to save less and shop more, thus increasing tax revenue without having a tax increase. Our city shouldn't be in the business of encouraging us to shop more when, if anything, we should be saving more, and to spend our tax dollars on such a program is doubly insulting. And just how smart is it to spend money on incentives to increase shopping, and that means trips to the shopping centers, while at the same time cutting funding for transit? Councilmember Heimlicher summed up nicely the brilliance of such a move.
We're trying to unclog our roads. We're working hard to fix the roads, but then we're trying to get some cars off the roads. And cutting transit by 14,000 hours is the exact opposite of what we should be doing, in my opinion.
And Councilmember Glenn is standing up for transit riders, but he's struggling to reconcile this with his love of economic development.
We are increasing money, and I'm very happy about economic development and the things that we're doing there. But this is also an economic stability situation for people, where we're asking people that can least afford to shoulder the burden of the cuts in the system.
Now let's look at just how short-sighted and narrow-minded this plan really is. Ms. Nunez cited one of the primary justifications of this program as sales tax leakage to the county.
For every big box that locates out in El Paso County, the city loses about $1.5 million annually in sales tax revenue.
Let me see if I've got this right. The city's plan is to use our tax dollars to pay Walmart an incentive to locate in the city instead of the county. The desired result is county residents will now all jump in their cars and clog our streets driving into town to buy their groceries. But it doesn't make any business sense either. Major retailers make their location decisions based on tried and true formulas. What do we think will happen if we entice them to ignore the data and locate based on a bribe from our retail enhancement program? That's a recipe for more abandoned storefronts in a few years after the luster of the incentives has faded and the retailers lured must face facts about questionable location decisions. Bottom line, we're underpaying our police, closing police substations at night, cutting transit, and taking money out of the pockets of local retailers to bribe out-of-town retailers who don't think there's a sound business case for locating here. Oh, and to fund $800 dinners for EDC's top brass.
Dinner alone last night was about $800.
Where we're asking people that can least afford to shoulder the burden of the cuts in the system.
Dinner alone last night was about $800.
It's not hopeless. Some council members indicated they might not be buying this economic development pig just because it's all dressed up and ready for dinner at the Broadmoor.
Parts of it I like, and parts of it I'm not quite sure about.
This strikes me as tying ourselves more securely to the anchor before we throw it overboard.
I'm so excited to see this program.
I think you should pursue it.
Whoops. Obviously, that clip didn't just include the one or two skeptics. EDC has been leading this city around by the nose for years, and apparently their grip is even tighter today. Our city is hooked on growth, and EDC is the pusher. Now, City Council will spend Halloween fine-tuning the proposed 2008 budget. They need to hear from us all right away, today. Let's urge them to eliminate all funding of the EDC's brand of economic development. When it comes to true economic development, we can do better.